Now, let's talk about during the meeting, okay? So during the meeting, someone mentioned, sorry, that's the next one. So you want to own the room, okay? Allianz Partner, TCS, HCL, Wipro, Tata, all of these guys, absolutely. Now, when you are in the meeting, well, first of all, you own the room, okay? And either you or your account manager, typically your account manager will also do a great job at owning the room, but you own the room, meaning there is an agenda that you share with the customer, okay? You got to stick to the agenda or to adapt. But if you stick to an agenda and at some point, things go all over the place and you start going, into discussions, like very deep technical discussions, and there's a CFO in the room, for example, you are going to annoy that CFO or all the non-technical people. So own the room, bring things back on track, okay? Even if your account manager goes and talk about too many things, bring the meeting back on track, all right? You own it. It's you who set up that meeting, all right? Be an active listener. Somebody mentioned that before. You want to let the customer talk more than you, okay? Who chairs this meeting? Well, it's if it's in your offices, you invite the customer, you invited the customer, you chair the meeting because it's your agenda, okay? If the customer invited you and they set the agenda, they chair the meeting, okay? Right, be an active listener, take notes. Remember these annual reports about Fortnite, Epic Games, that we reviewed. Take notes and try to map everything they say with the business outcomes. And then ask questions, does that relate to the improvement around the launcher, for example? Or does that relate, what you just said here, does that relate to expanding Epic Game to Australia? They're probably already in Australia, but you see what I mean? Try to map and to show the customer you've done your homework. You didn't just turn up to listen, see what is it you can sell them. You turn up knowing their business, okay? Now, how to avoid technical jargon with C-level meetings. You got to prepare here. And you got to avoid actually the technical jargon. It's all about value. It's not, you shouldn't actually use a technical word unless somebody asks you a question directly and you can answer it very quickly, less than 30 seconds. But if you have C-level meetings, they don't want to hear S3, for example. I keep saying S3 because it's an easy service, but I don't want to hear API or whatever, okay? It's not about, it shouldn't be actually technical if C-level is in the room. But with startups, C-level, you will find some technical people. It really depends. Okay, so take notes. Now, again, match the initiatives of the annual report finding. Adapt as much as you can. It could be the case that you have prepared an agenda. For example, you said the first 2 hours, the customer is going to tell you about their business, and you have a few things to share with them. And unfortunately, the people who need to share about the business, the people that you needed to be in the room, they're not here, but they send someone else. That person doesn't really know. It's quite annoying, right? You gotta adapt. So the way you can adapt is you can have a backup plan. So you have things that you can share with the customer. So for example, you can ask, okay, do you know about the cloud, for example? Do you know about the value? Do you want to discuss about a specific thing? They will say, okay, we want to understand how the cloud is going to reduce our cost of operations. You got to be ready to talk about these things, the basic things. What's the cloud? You should be able to talk about that, for example. How do we work with technical account managers? If you have a technical account manager, that technical manager can step up and start talking about how they work with the customer. But you cannot just say, okay, let's cancel the meeting and leave. You can always adapt and say, okay, you're not the right person to tell me about the business, but maybe we can share some insights about how we can help you and give some customer references, for example. Okay, but things can really go wrong sometimes. Okay, how do you start the conversation? You let the customer start first. So you start the conversation, you do a round of introduction, you understand who who is each individual in the room take notes. You ask them about their expectations. What is it you want to have achieved by the end of this meeting? And then you start the conversation with typically the agenda. Okay, so the first part will be customer will tell you about their business. They will just open up. Okay, and they will talk about their initiatives, what they're about, and what challenges they're trying to solve. All right. To start, you start with the customer. We don't start talking about how great you are. Okay. Okay. So it could be the case that you go to your first customer meeting and these guys already know your technology because they have been using it for 2 years, for example, and they just want to meet you to see, to discuss what's next. They didn't need you for how to get started with your services. So it could be the case that you go there and it's a technical meeting. They put on the screen a diagram, an architecture, and they talk you through this, and they just want to have your opinion. Okay, it could be the case. Now, these meetings, I have to say, after 1 year at Amazon Web Services, I'm still a little bit worried because I never know what kind of service they are going to show me. And it's, with more than 200 services, it's likely that there is one service I will not know about. And I'm like, okay, how am I going to navigate the conversation now? Well, it's not impossible to navigate the conversation, all right? Because you can rely on a framework. In AWS case, and I can only talk about AWS, something I really like to rely on is the well-architected framework. Okay, if you type that on Google, it's a framework that gives you best practices to design workloads on the cloud, on the AWS cloud. And it covers security, performance, availability, operational excellence, and cost. And so I start basically, of course, I know the well-architected review because I read that document many times. And I ask questions, okay, how do you achieve availability today with this design? Okay, how do you achieve, how do you secure your environment? And based on the best practices that I have read in the past, and there's 6 pillars, there's sustainability as well. Thank you for reminding me of that. And I ask questions based on what I have seen in that document. And that's how I navigate the conversation and will look for areas of improvement. Okay. So that's how you can get away without knowing. If you don't know services, again, be honest as well. If they throw something at you don't know, don't pretend, oh yeah, maybe this works like this. You will lose credibility if they find out that you basically try to lie or to pretend that you know about a service. Use the well-architected framework to navigate the conversation. Review this, use the 6 pillars to help you coming up with questions, relevant questions, and then be honest when you don't know and tell them, okay, I don't know for now, but imagine they ask a question about security, right? You don't know, like compliance and so on, PCI, DSS, and you don't know. Okay, are you the right person to discuss this in the next meeting? Okay, no, it's Bob. Okay, can I have Bob's email address? They give you Bob's email address. You schedule a meeting with Bob, with your security expert. You already have increased your network within the customer industry. Within the customer company. Okay. All right. Anything else that you would like to add to this list, guys? And if technical meeting, do you ask if they're aware of AWS? Well, you can actually. I mean, if you're going to navigate the conversation based on the well-architected framework, you don't have to tell them. But if you are meeting them to review their design, of course, yes, you need to mention the well-architected framework because this is something they can use at their own time. This is so they can do the well-architected review alone without you. Or you can tell them about the well-architected framework and you can schedule a session with them. Okay. Action items. Absolutely. Will the customer during the event? Yes, they should share their challenges. You're here to identify their challenges. Okay. All right. So after the meeting and someone said it right, you gotta have actions. By the way, before you finish the meeting, you need to summarize all the actions with the customer. Today we discussed this A, B, C, D, and we have these action items, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? And you want to have an owner on the customer side for each of these actions, okay? And then you want to send that email, either you or your account manager, you want to send that email to the customer with the summary, the actions, and you want to track those, okay? That's part of your homework, by the way. You want to track those activities. You might have a project manager if you're lucky in your team. In my team, we have a customer solution manager. They also do project management. They track the actions. It's great. When that person is not available, I do it proactively. It's important you do it proactively because within your organization, nobody is asking you to do that. But if you do it proactively, you're building a brand. Okay, people will trust you within your organization that you know how to make people accountable, and you are accountable as well. You can be a trusted person, and you don't want to be that person that is just reactive at work and wait for people to tell you what to do. You want to be that proactive person that goes around the angles, okay? It takes a bit of time, but then I promise you, you're going to build a really good brand if you do that kind of stuff. And start your homework. Okay, so your homework, maybe you got to prepare an enablement session. Maybe you got to prepare a demo. Maybe you're going to find a specialist in, I don't know, could be Blazor, or I don't know, Glue or ETL, for example, machine learning. Find those specialists, those experts who are going to help you and be part of that project. Proof of concept and also others, okay? Absolutely, proof of concepts. Am I missing? Yeah, I thought this was a little bit, okay, I'm just going to display everything. Yeah, proactively monitor actions. Let's have a look at an example, okay? We talked about some best practices. Let's talk about an example here. You have met the customer, you had a really good meeting, they told you about their business challenges, about the business outcomes they want to achieve. And here, the scenario is the following. Company is called Unicorn. They have a lot of farms. They basically, they make veggies and they sell those veggies to restaurants, to other companies, and then we buy them from the market, we buy them from groceries, okay? But now with climate change, it's quite annoying because they lose a lot of crops because the weather is difficult to predict, it's not good, and now they want to do more precision agriculture. And they want to connect the farms to the AWS cloud so that the farmer, he or she, he has this application, he can look at the temperature, humidity of the crops. They can also get notification when something is wrong. Say the temperature is 35 degrees. They know something is wrong, they can take actions, okay? And they don't lose the crops, which leads to increased revenue as well and to reduce the loss. Big business outcomes, okay? Is this a real life use case? Yes, yes, it is. And I think this one, I got it from the AWS reference, public reference. I think the company is called Yanmar, something like this. But what I'm going to tell you, the design I'm going to show you, it's my own design. It has nothing to do with Yanmar, or I'm just, the use case, a lot of organization in agriculture will have similar use case, precision agriculture, for example. But the design I'm going to share with you next, I prepared them for you, okay? So it's not something that an AWS customer is doing, or I'm not aware, okay?